Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Pitch Us. My name is Tim Cooley. I am the author of the Pitch Deck book. Excited to have Steve Rubenfair with us today to share his idea. Steve, please go ahead and share your screen with us and pitch us.
Okay. So, hold on. Sorry there. So my
You're good.
company is called BettorTakes. And at BettorTakes, we have, the problem we're solving, actually, I'm going to go a little off the deck maybe, but basically at BettorTakes, we've developed an algorithm that shows sports bettors their strengths and weaknesses. And this creates a tremendous amount of value because even helping sports bettors win just a little bit more can really improve their bottom line. So we create a tremendous amount of value by showing sports bettors their strengths and weaknesses. And as you can see from the slide, it's a pretty bleak outlook for sports bettors. Over 97% of them lose. They lose a lot. And there's really nothing out there that helps them find their strengths and weaknesses. There's a lot of data about games and trends, but there's nothing that really shows them what's inside of them. So the first tool we've built with our algorithm is live. We're live right now in the App Store. It's a predictive tool. And the way it works is the bettor tells us a prospective bet that they're planning on making. Our algorithm then searches their betting history for similar situations. And then we distill a whole bunch of variables into one number, which we call an edge score. And the edge score represents their proficiency or their expertise in that particular bet. And when they see their edge score, they can make a more informed betting decision. And if it's a good edge score, it just confirms that the bet is okay. But the real value is if it's a kind of a lower edge score, and then the bettor can maybe take a second look or add a little mindfulness or decide maybe not to place the bet. And it can really help curtail those places that are really draining their bankroll. And until they see it through our algo, they have no idea this is happening. And I'm a sports bettor myself, and I used it for college basketball this year, and it's really fantastic. It showed me things I never would have known otherwise. So let me see. So the timing right now is pretty perfect. Sports industry is growing like crazy. It's one of the hottest industries in the country. And the reason is the Supreme Court just made it legal. So one by one, the states are adopting it. The industry grew over 3 times last year, almost $100 billion bet in 2022. And because some of the larger states like Florida, California, and Texas haven't even legalized yet, there's some built-in growth. And it's a bit anti-recessionary. And right now, as demand is falling across most sectors, and looks like we're entering a little kind of an economic slump, it's one of the bright spots in the country right now, the sports betting industry, and it should continue to grow substantially over the next few years. So it's perfect timing right now. And we have no competition. There's nothing out there that really shows bettors their patterns, their biases. There's nothing out there that helps them make a more informed betting decision. We're the first to market for this. There will be others, but right now we have a lead, and we really have an impressive development timeline or roadmap. We have some really, really super cool features coming up. In the next couple months, we're adding what's called our recommendation engine, which is really an advanced special feature that's going to actively recommend bets based on people's past betting history. And again, there's nothing like it on the market. And we're going to monetize this through subscriptions. We're going to put some of our advanced features behind a paywall. And we're also going to have affiliate links, which, if you know what that is, affiliate links are a huge driver of revenue in the sports betting industry. And our software actually is a perfect accompaniment to affiliate revenues. So that's our revenue model. But we also have a B2B strategy. And we feel we have a larger opportunity to power other sites that already reach our demographic. There's a lot of sites out there that would be perfect matches for us. And we've developed our technology with this in mind. And we're actually talking to a couple prospective partners right now about powering and white labeling their sites. So really the plan is that we're creating an industry called the bet analyzer industry within the sports betting industry. We're establishing ourselves as the leader in this industry. And we're doing it by creating a narrative. We have a lot of industry contacts. And we want everyone to know that BettorTakes is the tops in the bet analyzer industry. So we're going to create a narrative that we're the best. We're always going to have the best products and the most advanced features. We're going to build up our B2C sites, and we are going to create an infrastructure for the bet analyzer industry. We've already gotten a lot of attention in the media. There's tons of articles about us. We have a great staff, our team, I should say. Our executive team is, actually, there's one more I should throw in here. We have 7 people on our executive team. We're all seasoned. We've all been around a long time. I've been growing companies from scratch for over 40 years. Our CTO is somebody really special. He's CTO. His previous job was CTO of a company you've heard of. We have 2 founders in the sports betting industry that have dedicated followings. We have an incredible digital marketing guy with Fortune 500 clients. And we have an amazing UX UI designer that has had his own company for over 20 years. And we're all working for equity only. So our burn rate is embarrassingly low. We're looking for $500,000 in pre-seed financing and a small amount for administrative fees, but almost all of this is going to go right into marketing and development. And really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to establish proof of concept, either by growing our B2C site or by signing up some B2B customers. And once we've established proof of concept, we can go for a seed round at a much higher valuation. We think this should take a year or less. And the way the industry is going right now, all of the big shots in the industry, some of the leaders you might have heard of, FanDuel or DraftKings, and there's a whole bunch of sites like that, they're all jockeying to be the one-stop shop in the industry where bettors go for all of their information. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to position ourselves as the leader in the bet analytics industry. We're positioning ourselves as an asset, as a jewel that you have to own if you want to be that one-stop shop. If DraftKings wants to be the place that everybody comes to and nobody leaves their site to do something else, they've got to own BettorTakes. So that's the end goal here, is to position ourselves as a resource or an asset that a larger company has to have to capture the crowd and make sure to get them to stay on their site. And I think that's about it. That about sums up where we are currently, where we're headed. And I don't know, I think that's pretty much the presentation I have.
Cool, thanks. So it's about 7 minutes. So good job on that. You have more time usually. So let's start off with some of the things that I like. One, great energy on the presentation as a whole. I think the industry is really interesting. Like you said, there's lots of opportunity in this industry because of those federal regulations, and it's just going to evolve pretty rapidly, I think. So I like that. I actually really like the colors. That's very silly, but I think it's you carried out that for what this is, the branding stayed through. I think there's some areas we can help on that. And I really, really liked your team. The way you described them was very powerful. So kudos for those things. So let's get into the areas of opportunity, but I kind of want to do this different since it's just you and me. And I want to show people like how I normally work with people who we're going through their deck. So the first thing is there's a lot of text on this deck, right? And so we can remove really almost all of it and replace it with photos, right? So let's go back to the beginning of the deck itself.
Where is it? Oh, Jesus. Okay.
So here's how I would recommend starting. I think it's really, really helpful when people start with their background, right? You're a 40-year entrepreneur, done a bunch of things, and you're a sports bettor. That sets the foundation as to why this business exists. You probably have seen this in other pitch deck examples. It'll be like, why you? Why now? Well, when you root the pitch in your background, you don't need a slide necessarily. But when you communicate that, it really helps us understand the why now from the very beginning. And you don't need to say why now. That's old school. Okay. The next thing here, again, these can all be photos, right? You're trying to make me feel the problem. We all understand this. This is how the industry works, is more people lose than win. But I think if you can turn these into pictures, it would really help us really understand, where you're going with it.
So you mean pictures with the text embedded in the pictures?
Yeah, like you can say like 97% of people lose, you have a person with a frowny face, right? And then you can do another kind of like, you can visually show the rest. There's no tools, you know what I mean, or whatever. There's ways of doing that where it's communicated more visually than with text. Okay, let's see, better. All right, so we've set the stage of where you're at. Now we've kind of analyzed the problem. One thing I will say is like, as you went, whoa, it's okay. As you went through the problem, you kind of get to the solution, and then you kind of introduced a few more problem statements. I highly recommend front loading all the problems that you might cover in the beginning. As I'm a listener, I'm trying to like, I'm like, oh, well, how do you solve the 97%? How do you solve this? And then if you don't completely solve those in my head and you introduce a new problem, I get confused and lost. So just something to think about.
Okay.
Okay. Property algorithm analyzes player betting history. Okay, cool. So these are going to be those features. So what you want to do, and people are putting together their decks, is have them opposite. So let's take that 97%. What I'm looking for in the solution is a higher win rate now, right? Like, so people who have used our app are now winning, 5% more than they were before.
We don't really have direct data like that. Like, we're live, but we haven't been live long enough to have a direct correlation. That's kind of why we're like pre-seed instead of seed. So that's what we're looking for, that kind of proof of concept, but we don't quite have that yet.
Okay, so then I would remove that data point.
The 97% lose?
Yeah, so yes, or you need to communicate it a little bit differently than this is the problem, right? You need to either frame the problem differently or remove it. Does that make sense? This happens a lot with medical products. They'll be like, 80% of people get diabetes. And then it's like, well, what percentage you decrease the gaining of diabetes? Because that's what you're saying, right? You're saying ultimately with our product, people win more.
They're right, but I mean, don't they need something to hang their hat on? Don't we need to say this is how things are and this is what we're trying to do? I mean, we don't quite have that proof of concept yet, but don't we still need to define the problem that we're trying to solve?
Yes, but unless you can prove it, you can't claim it as a problem. Does that make sense? You can, but
I'm not sure. I'm not. Okay, can you tell me what should I say instead of this? Maybe that'll help me understand. How do I convey that sports bettors lose money without saying they lose money?
I think you can go to the problems, the other ones, right? Instead of that one. So, like current betting is just based off of hunches, right? And therefore, like there is no historical record of bets. Does that make sense? With our solution, you now have a historical record of your bets. You see what I'm saying? So those are opposites.
Okay, I'm not quite clear, but we can move on.
Yeah. So like, for example, like players can't analyze their betting history. The solution is we built a tool that analyzes players' history based off of these data points. So
but we don't need to say why. We don't need to say the reason why they want to bet that's a tool to help them win more. We don't want to say why that's important to look at your betting history or analyze your betting history.
What you're going to say is that players want an edge. That's what they're looking for. And this could be a tool that gives them an edge, right? So what I'm saying is that number is a rooted number. And if you put it, then I need to see an increase.
Okay, I get it.
You know what I'm saying? So, but that's a specific thing. That's all I'm trying to say is you can say that thing without saying the number.
Okay.
I know that's hard to explain, but
is this broadcast going to be available to me later? Like, am I going to get a link to this?
Yep.
Okay.
It's live right now, so I'll send it to you. Okay. So the next thing is so again, making sure that the problem statement and the solution really should be opposites. The next thing that I would do is make sure that when you start to get into the solution, that each one of these bullet points, one less words, is demonstrated with your app. So like, show me how this analyzes a historical record, right? Show me how it does patterns and biases, show me each one of these elements as they relate to the previous problem statement that we had. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so now let's move forward. I think we stick into the solution here for a couple slides. App is live. Okay, so let's assume right now, just based off the title, that this is going to be more of a traction slide. Better enters. Okay, so this is how it works. Okay, so I would break this apart into kind of the steps if you want to keep this idea of let me show you the product itself. So you've got problem, solution, and then kind of a demo, right? Break that in. You can use as many slides as you need, right? So a better goes in and you can walk me through this and then I can see how the application functions. And that's a really beautiful way of doing that. A lot of people try to use video, but video can get messed up. So highly recommend using photos.
Got it. Okay, one small thing. If I'm going to show how these patterns and biases and things, how we deal with these, it's going to be a little redundant to then show the flow of our site. Is that okay? Or
test it out. You probably won't need the flow.
Okay.
Right. This is a good one to like. Sometimes people want to say, let me show you how it works. And then they'll like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. That's a really good way of showing you how you solve the problems. Or the other one might be, here's how we do this part of it. Here's how we do this part of it. And I don't need that step progression.
Got it.
So I would test those both out. I think you're going to lean towards the first one if I'm just guessing.
Okay. Understood.
All right. Okay. I love this slide. And it kind of goes into the why now. But let's come back to this slide because this is really important for your marketing. From a logical flow point of view, what I like to get people to do is get right into the numbers right now. So you've already built this case of why you've built me up on this product problem and solution statements. And then as a business, I want to get into the numbers as soon as possible, right? Like you always see this on Shark Tank. They're like, but so what do you cost? What do you sell it for? So go right into that.
Okay. So we kind of don't talk about that. We
you do, but it comes like 3 or 4 slides.
Yeah.
This one. Okay. So
we are skipping over one more. We're skipping over the competition site, just so you know.
Yeah, we'll bring those 2 back here in a second.
Got it.
Okay, so a slide like this, I want the revenue to be so easy to see. So you could do this into 4 columns, right? And you could go freemium tier. There's, I don't know, rookie, which is $10 a month. There's expert, which is $40 a month. And then there's this B2B, which is something else, right? And then you could list kind of those like feature sets or whatever. You've probably seen that on people's pricing pages. And so in this area, right? So now it's really, really clear. You pulled out those numbers so I can just scan them. What I would mention is like, we're starting here. We're going to go into here and eventually, and then you're going to show me the next slide, which is a forecast slide, was what you're missing. So I know you don't know necessarily speaking, but we're going to guess what the next 3 years looks like.
I know. I know that we're supposed to do that, and there's a lot of pressure for founders to have financials and but it's just such fiction. You know what I mean? Like, I know it has to be there, but it just, as a founder, it's like, God, it's like, it just seems so detached from reality. I feel like we have something so strong and so grounded in truth. And then I'm supposed to put these projections that, they're based on something, but at the end of the day, we have no idea how it's going to play out exactly or these things. So I'm very reluctant to put any numbers or projections, but I know that's what investors need. You need something to hang your head on and see what the future is going to lie. But
what I would recommend to help with that, and that this is really for a lot of people, is especially since you're pre-seed, I would say they're not projections. They're really an outlay of marketing strategy, right? We're going to start here. Halfway through next year, we're going to go here. We're going to put a lot more money at this point. That's kind of really what you're saying, right?
Okay.
Like
So more
So
of a growth plan.
it's more of a growth plan with numbers, right?
Got it.
And since you have, these kind of 4 different revenue models, I highly recommend using like a stacked bar chart, right? So it's like we're today, like, for example, like you might say like today I'm only going after podcasts, right? And we're going to do that for the next 6 months. And then, then we're going to introduce this medium tier, you know what I mean? And if things go well, we're going to look something like this.
Got it.
And that's why I think for pre-seed 3 years is pretty good, because like, I don't know if you're launching tomorrow or if you're launching like, a year from now, right? Like I think a 3 year for a pre-seed is pretty good. Whereas like if you're at revenue, then 5 years probably a little bit better. But either way, you're guessing. But for us as like investors, we're like, oh, okay, I can see. Or really what you're doing, this is in the book, the pitch deck book, but it's like, can you math? Like that's really what I'm looking for. And do your numbers make sense? Or are you just like if you said, yeah, we're going to be at, 3 billion by the end of the year, then I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also our CFO. I can build very complex I mean, won't be so detailed, but I can build very complex financial models and things like that. Perfect. So I can do all these things.
Yeah. So that's how I recommend do that. Okay. So now what we would do is I think it's important here to go into the market, right? So you rooted me in some numbers. You told me what the financials look like. Now I think bringing back these kinds of things, right? Again, pictures over words. This thing is a really big one that the Supreme Court ruling is really, really big. And so now you can say like, you can, visually make this look awesome. Right. Okay. And then I would also put on here, because it's kind of hidden, that it is up to the state. Because it seems like, well, if the federal did it, then how come Texas and California? Like, it's just not a clear.
Got it.
I have to do a little bit more thinking than you want me to. That's really what I'm saying. Okay. So now we've covered like the market. Competitive analysis is your next slide. No competition. So something to think about, and you probably know this too as an entrepreneur, no competition is a bad thing.
I know that. I want to make up and I know, but I just, there's not. I don't know how to like, I know that. There's got to be a market. There's got to be like, I know, but we just like, there's just nothing like it. So there are these like bet trackers that are like, this would be our competition. There's bet trackers that are just zeros, but how do I like?
So I would take those, and then I would take the FanDuels or whatever they're called, and then I would compare them and compare them based off the features you mentioned earlier, and then you can show them as like if there's no check marks, there's no check marks. But okay, is it FanDuel? Did I make that?
Yeah.
Okay, so like if FanDuel is not, they have something, but it's just going to be
FanDuel has nothing. That those sites aren't the wouldn't be our competition at all. It's sites you've never heard of, like BetStamp or the Action Network.
Okay,
they just have
I would pull those out, and I would use like the FanDuel as kind of an anchor, because most people know that name. And you're like, look, they don't have anything other than like your win-loss record. Like
I'm not sure they have that.
I don't know. I don't use the app, so. Okay. So that's that. I would do that again. Put that visually.
Got it.
So traction. That slide we had really earlier, which is like you're live in the App Store, that kind of stuff, right? Yep. So I would bring this in here again, bring it a little bit more visual. Of bring me into some of the things that you've accomplished so far. Like you can do it from a traction point, or not traction, from like a timeline point of view, like launched in the App Store on June 1st, 100,000 downloads, right? Or whatever the key metrics is that you might have. But again, I would reduce the words and make it a little bit more visual, or you could make this kind of timeline-y, right? Like January 1, June 18th, or whatever these things are going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because if you go back to that slide, this slide has actually more solutions on it, all features incentivized, but this needs to be totally focused on the execution of you guys. Like what you're doing here, honestly, is you're kind of bragging to the investor that you guys are a solid team worth betting on. Like what I want to do when I hear this slide especially if it's pre-seed and you can kind of tell early on, you're like, blow me away with some metrics that I'm like, how did you do that?
We don't. I'll try, but I mean that's like why we're not seed yet. Because we
I
don't have
know.
those.
I know. I'm just saying, like that's the goal of this part.
Okay.
Yeah, like
I mean, we're so happy just to be
like,
live. Like, it's taken so long just to make this thing and go live. You know, it's like.
well, I mean, but those are things. It's like, look, we started it, back in, let's say, 2018. We brought on 5 people on the team. All these are major traction elements. Like, they may not seem important, but they are as a collective, right?
Okay.
Those kinds of things.
Got it.
Okay, so we covered finances, market, traction. Okay, so next steps. Similar to next steps, I want these things to be really, really clear. Build a narrative in sports betting. Okay, so I want to see, these are kind of more, they seem more like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like kind of mission statement-y. I want to know, like, with the money, these are the things that we're going to do. And like, you should be able to check it off. Like, we're going to launch on Android. We are going to get, 30,000 downloads. We're going to, I don't know what they are, but that's kind of like, we're going to get our first B2B client, right? We need to build these 5 feature sets.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so next steps is literally another term for it would be milestones. These are the milestones we're going to accomplish.
Okay. More specific, got it.
Yep. So if I put this in a Trello board, we could say done.
Got it.
Right? Okay. Okay, so here again, this is a really beautiful thing. Like we talked about, that traction element is I would pull out the thumbnails of these things and not the link, because I'm not like, I understand if you might want to send this to somebody, but I would still say, like, here is the thing, here's a link underneath it, you can follow it if you want to. Does that make sense? And then you can also
my connection is cutting out a little bit, but you're saying make thumbnails instead of these links, like kind of make it more visual, basically.
Yep. And then if you want, if this is a presentation you're going to send to people, you could put the link underneath that's super small, so it doesn't distract from the slide. And you could also do something like, you could split this up, right? Like you could put like YouTube and then put all the YouTube links, right? And then you could put like media, or like you could put news articles, and then you could put all those things too. So it's giving it a little bit more pizzazz, I guess. I don't know.
No, I get it. This looks, now I'm looking at the slide going, what the hell was I thinking? This slide looks
yeah, like you got 2 YouTube links on here. You could be like, we're on YouTube. Okay, cool. So now it's like, okay, so traction, you've got the milestones that you're going to do, and then this one goes back into traction. And then now your team, I think your team is solid. I don't really, other than like, you could reduce words here, but I think you speak to everybody so well, I don't think it's that big of a deal. One thing we like to recommend is no less than 22 size font. And so neither here nor there, but just something to think about.
Got it.
Okay. So then after the team is the ask itself. So pre-seed, do you have, okay, one thing I would do here is I would end on this slide. So that make this like the full summary of the whole deck itself. So I would reintroduce what your product does. Like I would take that line up and be like, analytics around betting, whatever you want to do here. I would break out the 500 into its own little area. You can do this however you want, but these are the elements that I would put here. 500, whatever the terms are for that deal, if you know them. I would also bring back in the milestones. So these are the things that we're going to accomplish. And then the use of funds. So we're going to spend 20%, like you said, marketing and development. So what's that percentage, right? That's the use of funds, and then the milestones with 500K. We're going to spend it here and accomplish these things in this industry is really what the whole slide is about. Okay.
And that's a fair amount of text there. Is there a way to make it like not so busy, you think, or is it just
so you could do just like little bullets, right? So you don't need like marketing, like 20% marketing. That's like this much space. right? 80% product. Cool. That's all 100%. And then you could break down those milestones are like, feature 1, feature 2, B2B launch. Like keep those again, 2 to 5 words at the most. And then you wouldn't take up the whole space. The other thing I would add to this is your contact information. So at the bottom, just put your name and email. So, and the reason for that, this slide in a pitch deck gets the most airtime.
Okay.
So when you leave it up there, most of the time, in any kind of pitch, it just stays there. And then they're like, so tell me about Kentucky. Like, why aren't they, whatever the thing is going to be. And then what ends up happening is they read through your slide over and over and over again, very passively. And then they're like, oh yeah, so tell me how pricing works again. And then you walk through that. Or like, for example, my question to you is, what happens if someone goes with your recommendation and they lose? Right?
That happen a lot.
What? Yeah. So can you be sued? I would actually have a slide about that because it's going to get brought up. It's a liability thing. The other thing that I would have within that is, do you need special regulations within each state for this type of application?
Yeah, sorry, Tim, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, sorry, just cut out for a second. I can hear you now, but I'm going in and out a little bit. So if I'm not responsive, that's why. You're cutting out slightly, but
okay. Yeah. No, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, so did you get that? So like I would have some kind of legal referencing. What happens if they lose based off your recommendation? Like, how are you protected? And then the other one I would do is
really, you think people are really is that really a problem? Like, I mean, people understand that. I mean, you're gonna lose you're gonna lose a lot of your bets. I mean, no one is gonna win every bet no matter what. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, but you're claiming that you can help them win more, especially if you're making recommendations.
But it's incremental more. They're still going to lose many bets. I mean, we're not going to make people into winners that aren't winners. So we're going to make everybody. We're hoping to make everybody raise their level a little bit. But if somebody's a 35% player, we hopefully will make them a 38% winner. But they're still going to lose almost 2/3 of their bets. Like, I think that's kind of like. I understand if we have to address this with investors, but realistically, losing comes with, no one expects to win every bet. No one's going to expect to win every recommendation.
I know, but let me just throw out a correlation. No one expects you to spill coffee on yourself either and claim that it's hot. Does that make sense? I don't know if I cut out there for you, but I just think you gotta play to the potential lowest denominator.
Are you there, Tim? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I've been gone for about 20 seconds. I couldn't hear you. Apologies.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say no one expects
internet connection.
Yeah, I was gonna say no one expects someone to spill coffee on themselves and then sue McDonald's, right? So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I really enjoyed walking you through that whole thing. So I'm going to just get to the final question for the show itself. And that's based off of what was presented today. Would I move the company onto due diligence? I don't know if I would or wouldn't. I would love a follow-up, actually. I think this is I
can't hear you, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I don't know if it's me. But I do like the space.
Keep cutting out. I missed okay. I just missed the last 10 or 15 seconds of what you said.
It's okay. I really like the space that you're playing in, so I would follow the deal. It's a little early for me, but I like the industry that you're playing in. And if this works, especially that B2B side, is very interesting. You're just early, right? So that's my answer. So the answer is maybe. It's something I would follow up on and be very interested in following your story.
Okay, cool.
So with that, Steve, thanks for presenting. Please hang out for a little bit afterwards. And if you guys are out there looking for help with your pitch decks, please apply to the show first. We love doing this. It's free. And then also check out the pitch deck book. It's like $7 on Amazon. It's a great deal. You can also get it, whatever. But and then if you need help with your finances, please check out Forecaster. There's a link in the description. That's a great tool, and that company is growing like crazy. So thanks again, Steve, for being here, and we'll see you all next time.